It's gonna be myself and.
Good morning, everyone. It is a Tuesday morning, which means it's Tuesday Training and Tactics here at Paradise Valley. I'm Melissa Schwartz, the managing broker here in the Paradise Valley office. Today, we've got guest speakers, and I actually have to go to a training class, which I'm really bummed because I wanted to listen to this. So thankfully, this is being recorded, and I will be able to watch it later, as you can as well. We'll make sure that that is accessible later this week. For those of you joining us at the holiday party, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. I'm going to jump out of my seat. We've got Mike Tizzano and Barb Spitzak with Epic Lending that are going to talk about some very cool things here. Do you want me to switch so you're over next to him? Okay, all right. So have a great class, folks.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hey, everybody. Can you guys hear us okay? Those of you that are online? Since nobody's on camera, just put it in the chat if you can't, please.
Welcome. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Mike and I are going to be talking about our new List and Lock feature. It's not a new program, but they've added another feature that's going to make it easier for you to use. I know that the $9.99 was a little bit steep for some people to pull the trigger on, especially with rates trending down. So we have another program that is only $49. And we're going to go into that right now. Mike's going to pull up the presentation.
Okay.
And if any of you have questions at all, just put them in the chat and we will get those answered.
Screen sharing failed, so let's try that again. Share that. Is that up on there now? Is it sharing
They
up
can
here?
hear us both.
Okay. Perfect. Let me see. It's not
Hi,
allowing.
Jody. Hi, Ben. Hi, Barry. Hi, Harvey.
Okay, I'm failing to share the screen here. Let's see here. I'm gonna
Hi, Barb.
and try again. Keeps giving me an error message that I can't share my screen. So
Is there something I can do on my end?
let me just send this over to, is that Melissa's computer?
I already sent it to her.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't know if
Go
we
into
can
her
pull it
email.
up. Yeah, that's true. So, all right, we're having technical difficulties. Screen sharing is failing. So let me see here. Let's try this.
So for those of you that might not be familiar with the List and Lock program, the one for $49 can be paid by the seller. It can be paid by you, the listing agent. It can be paid by anybody. So once the $49 is paid, then you can advertise the rate less whatever concessions your seller is willing to part with. And you can advertise those rates. So for instance, if rates are 6.75 and with 2% concessions, they can get down to 6.125 on a conventional, then that can be advertised as a lower rate and an advantage. With that being said, if the sellers end up buying, they will also get a credit from us towards closing costs if they use us on their next purchase. So there's a lot of advantages to the List and Lock. And by the way, we do have Roberta here as well from Rock Title if you have any title questions along the way. And she'll also be saying a few words here before the end.
I'm going to.
I also have flyers that we can co-brand for you, which will explain a little bit further on that. And we can send you the link on how to put an address in to see how that looks.
I'm gonna leave the meeting and come back in and see if that.
Okay.
Because it's not letting me share it.
Mike's having some technical difficulties on the presentation.
It's not letting me share it on the Zoom, so that's not fun.
No. See if she can pull up her email because I have it on her email. So I had emailed it to Melissa. I don't want to go in her email though.
It's giving me an error.
You want to pull up the
I can't share.
presentation on your email?
Sure. Hang on, folks.
It doesn't. Okay. So if the seller, basically when people go to list the property, for instance, if it was being listed at 500, right?
Is that
If
what
you-
you're seeing?
That's what I'm getting now. That wasn't what was coming up before, but that's what I'm getting.
Okay, I'm just gonna go to my inbox and,
So if, for instance, if you, the listing agent wanted to suggest 500 and that's what the seller was saying that they wanted to list it at 500. If you think comps would support like say 510. Okay. Right, and then now your seller might be interested in giving 20,000 towards concessions if there was an interested buyer, right? Because if you do it off the bat, then you're not lowering the price, lowering the price,
Right.
lowering the price, because that's not gonna really help the buyer at all, because lowering the price doesn't do much to a loan as much as
Okay.
concessions. is
so
do
let me
to a
go back
rate.
to my Zoom.
And so your seller could choose to list it at 510 instead,
Where'd I
but
go?
automatically offer 20,000, which is only 10,000 less than what they wanted, right? And they can be giving the buyer a much better rate that's advantageous, and then you're able to advertise it. So now you're, standing amongst the rest
Where'd my
as far
Zoom
as
go?
the rate that you're offering for this property, and it comes with a
All right.
sign right, the QR code. There's lots of
right,
marketing
folks.
materials that come along with that.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's why. You want to try yours again real quick?
Okay,
Would have been easier just to do that.
fair. I'm
All
up.
right.
I'm not getting any.
Can you hit share your screen?
I'm getting failure.
Okay, all right. So let me just do that and let me share my screen.
So Mike, isn't it $5,000 if the seller uses us to purchase a home, they get towards closing costs?
Yeah, if the seller uses us to purchase their next home, then they will get a $5,000 credit towards their closing costs on the home that they purchase. But honestly, guys, the reason that this is an advantageous program, and the adjustments we made to it to make it so more people will be likely to use it, because yeah, $9.99 upfront for sellers is kind of steep when we're not sure what's happening, but $49 isn't. And so one of the most advantageous things is the fact that, the last 2 years, most of the focus has been on interest rates. So if you have a client who's selling a house in an area where there's some new builds that are offering those massive incentives, how are they going to compete with that? They're competing with these closing costs covered, interest rate at whatever 2-1 buy downs being paid for. So this gives them a little bit of an ability to compete with those. And then also, if you have a house that's sitting on the market and you're thinking about a price drop, you probably want to look at whether offering a concession and being advertised and being able to advertise that below market rate is going to get you a lot more traffic on that house. To me, if I'm looking at it and I can advertise a monthly payment that's more affordable than a price drop, that might get more advertising,
Then it's showing
more
you
eyes on
what
your
people are
home.
seeing.
And for example, if you looked at it, I did an example a couple months ago where they wanted to do a $10,000 price drop, and the impact on the buyer's potential monthly payment was like $64 a month or $74 a month. Where if we took that and did a rate buy down with that $10,000 for them, that's a $240 a month payment impact. So the difference is huge between how much it can impact the payment, and that's what people are considering when they're buying a home. So if we, and the great part about it, and we'll get to it now that we got the presentation up, we'll get to it, but the great part about it is we advertise it for you. So I'll let Barb take back over now that we've got everything squared away, and sorry about those technical difficulties.
No, this is just going over, giving you the competitive advantage over other listings, right? So some of your listings have been sitting. We want to give you that competitive advantage so that right off the bat, or even if it's been sitting and you want to stand out amongst the rest with the interest rates, this is a great way to do that. If you're just about to list something, this is also a really good way to get in front of that competition that you have out there for the homes. Why is that playing like that? Oh, that's why we saw the
Yeah.
blank spot.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like I was just saying, interest rates are the number one obstacle for home buyers because affordability is an issue.
Absolutely. So like I was just explaining to Stacy, we were trying to figure out this presentation, is that a lot of people think that reducing the price is going to attract buyers when really the amount of the loan doesn't have so much of an impact as money does towards buying down the rate or helping with closing costs. So if your seller is willing to give some concessions, that's where this comes into play, because it's not going to work without concessions per se.
Correct. So basically the way it works is, if you're, especially if your seller's considering a price drop, you would want to contact one of us and just say, hey, instead of us dropping the price $10,000 or $15,000, what can that do for us on an interest rate? And we can put in, and we'll show you at the end of the presentation how easy it is to determine how much of a rate discount you can advertise by doing that. And in turn, getting more people's eyes on your property. So
here's some of the numbers that we were talking about, like the difference in lowering the price versus keeping the price where it's at and offering the concessions towards a lower interest rate. As you can see in this example, the rate goes from 7% to 5.125%, and the difference in the monthly payment is enormous. It's a game changer for a lot of buyers right now. I mean, that's over $400 a month in savings, which could have a huge impact with their debt to income. They're able to afford a little bit more, right? So,
yeah,
If-
and so if you're looking at it here, what this shows under the monthly payment, dropping $20,000 saves them a little under $100 per month, but dropping, using that money with a $17,000 seller concession, a 3% seller concession, instead of dropping the price, the buyer is going to get a almost a $400 lower monthly payment, but then doing the price drop. Actually,
it's actually
it's
$500.
$500 lower than if they than the $590 without the concession. So the list and lock and the concession towards buying down the rate has a much bigger impact on their monthly payment. And again, that's going to help more buyers qualify for the home.
Does anybody have any questions so far? I mean, we'd love to make this interactive.
Roberta, you always have questions. Are we doing that good of a job explaining it that you guys don't have questions?
Such a good job.
That's it. Honestly, I was just so thrown off by the tech issues, but and again, the other side is just another example. And we have examples through this presentation with different price ranges. So again, as you can see here, dropping a $20,000 on a $400,000 house is going to save about $130 a month for the buyer, but using a 3% concession, which is only $12,000 for your seller, is going to save them more like $250 a month. So it's a big difference in the monthly savings. Plus, it keeps a little bit more money, more proceeds for your seller.
380.
Yeah.
So it's 380 of a savings if you kept it at 400 with the concessions.
Right, versus dropping it $20,000, and instead of giving up 20,000, your seller's giving up 12.
Right. So
excuse me?
let's see the next example
Can I ask
here.
a question? Can I ask a
And it
question?
works on larger ones. And one of the things, like my old company that I worked for did have a list and lock program. It was very expensive, but they only allowed us to advertise conventional rates. So our list and lock program, we can do whatever you think. If you're going to target veterans, we can do a veteran list and lock for a VA loan. If you have jumbos, we can do it. If you have conventional, we can do it. If you think it's a house that's listed under 400,000 and you're more likely to get an FHA buyer, we can do that. So there's a lot of different options that we can advertise for you guys. But the best part, is coming up in the presentation is the advertising collateral we give you along with doing this list and lock program. So.
And just going back to when you initially list the home as well, no listing agent, no seller wants to keep dropping their listing price. So if you come up with a price, and even if you think it's going to appraise for a little bit more than what you're thinking, like the example I was using with Stacy, if it was 500,000 and you list it for 510, but are willing to give a $20,000 concession, then you're really only taking 10,000 less than what you originally wanted. And that can really go a long way with the buyers that are out there right now with the obstacles they're facing with debt to income, and their monthly payments being a little bit too steep. So what I've seen a lot, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, is that if you do have it listed and you keep doing price drops, then the buyers think something's wrong with the listing. And sometimes that's why you're not getting a lot of traffic after 80 days or whatever the case may be. I've seen it a lot, and I'm sure you have as well. And that's the last thing you want, is for it to get listed too high, just because that's what the buyer or the seller wanted to do. And then have it sit because buyers think something's wrong once you start lowering the price, right?
Correct. And again, the section we're in now is talking about being proactive and doing this as you get ready to list the house. Obviously, we don't know what rates are going to do in the future. And so we have the two options of the list and lock, which is more expensive, where we lock the rate for 60 days and you can advertise it as a locked interest rate. But this newer program, you can advertise an unlocked interest rate and the buyer gets to take advantage if the rates do decline. So that's another good advantage to this program. So again, the whole point is just to get more eyes on your listing. And with rates being the number one concern of most buyers right now, this is a way to do that.
And the sellers are not the only one that has to pay that 49. It can be the listing agent, it can be anyone can pay that $49, and then you're gonna get all the collateral to be able to advertise it. So
Excuse
how it
me?
works is you would send us, well, we could do the scenario for you, right? Which we're gonna show you as well on the screen, how easy it is, because you can go to either Mike's My Site or My Site and type in an address under one of the headings that we have. I think it's sale, right? Sell.
It's under sell.
It's under
Yeah.
sell, the title sell, and then you go to list and lock and you put the address in. So creating the list and lock will send you the official list and lock site. You'll determine what your concession is. It can be 1%, it can be 3%, it can be 5%, depending on if you're doing FHA or VA or conventional, because conventional is capped at 3% unless they're putting a lot more money down. But we can walk you through that as well. And most of the time you're going to choose the $49 refundable fee instead of the $9.99, since rates are on the downward trend. And then you'll be able to market the house with a discounted rate. You'll attract more buyers, you'll sell it faster. And then we'll provide the abundance of custom marketing collateral for you to be able to share on social media and in other areas.
And just to get back to the refundable aspect, if a buyer comes in and they close with us, then the fee does get refunded back to the seller. And then my favorite part about all this is the bonus, right? Because we hadn't talked about this yet. We'll actually chip in the equivalent of 1% in discount points as well. So that makes the advertised rate that you guys get to have even lower. So we're gonna advertise the rate with whatever concession you decide to give. So you can give 1 to 3 to 6%, and we're gonna give another 1. So that now your advertised rate looks even better than it would have otherwise.
So locking now versus locking later. I don't even think we need to talk about the lock now, because Mike, in my opinion and Mike's opinion, from what we're seeing, is a downward trend. So you'd want to do the lock later. And you'll be able to advertise that discounted rate based on today's rate with the seller concession. Discounted rate will fluctuate based on market conditions, and the lock is made once the qualified buyer is identified and pre-qualified. So it's a pretty awesome way to go about it to get your listing noticed right away. And this is going back to what Mike was talking about Epic Lending contributing 1% in addition to whatever your seller is contributing towards the rate as well.
So I don't know about you guys, but I remember not that long ago when I started saying 5% to people, they wanted to rip my head off. And now when I say 5% to people, they think I'm a hero. So it just shows the volatility of the interest rate market. So, that's why having both these options is really good, because right now, yeah, we are trending in a downward trend with interest rates slowly. I'd like it to go a little faster
So
personally.
would I.
So
would all of us.
so would everybody in lending, so we could actually get more stuff done. But we never know. One piece of information, we have a jobs report coming out this week, and if we get another blowout jobs report, which is not outside the realm of possibility, we might be back on an upward trend, right? So having both of these options available to your sellers makes it so you can use the option that's best for them.
And just so you see from the slide, this is what it's gonna look like when, Mike and I pull it up on the screen. But at the top of our website for Epic Lending, like our individual ones, it'll say sell, you'll click on sell. And then this is what's gonna come up where you can choose, what you'd like to do.
And honestly, you guys don't have to do it yourself. If you just want to send us the property information, we can do it for you. So,
Absolutely. So it's showing you here, if you go to my site, whether it's Mike's or mine, you're gonna see that cell at the top. And then you would click on cell, and then you would go to the list and lock program, and you can put in an address with or without us. You know, we can do it for you, or you can do it on your own.
yeah, if you don't want us to know, you can do it on your own. If you want to do it all incognito, it doesn't save the past ones, so.
No, it doesn't.
I can't go in and look and say, oh, you had one. I can't go in and look and say, oh, Jody had one. I'm gonna call her, you know. If you want to do it yourself, that's fine, but if you just want us to do it for you, we can do it.
So this is just showing you how you can get started without even, you know, having to pick up the phone and talk to us, right? It'll show you those advertised, discounted rates that you can look at, and here's all the collateral, you know, that you'll be able to look at in that program. It's pretty easy.
But we're both very nice people, so you might want to just pick up the phone and talk to us. Barb's nicer than me, but
So here's where you would put the address in. Once you click the cell and the list and lock, this is what pops up. You would put the address in, hit get started, and then, you know, you can put in what the concession looks like. You can do scenarios. You can put in 1%, 1.5%, 2%, and then see what those look like. That will also include our 1% discount that we're offering as well. So
perfect.
it's pretty awesome. Let's see here.
I have a question.
And one of the reasons that's really cool, so let's say you get your seller to agree to do a 3% concession and you want to do maybe part of the money towards the buyer's closing costs. So you can put 1.5% in our list and lock, see what rate that gives you. And if you're satisfied with that rate, you can say, okay, it's 5.75 plus we're giving 1.5% towards closing. That's just additional eyes on your property for you.
So that's really 2.5% in concessions because we're giving the 1.
Right.
So it'd be 2.5% in concessions, and then you'd still be able to save 1.5 for the buyers with their closing costs, their regular closing costs. So this is what you're going to be looking at, is the different rates based on conventional, FHA, VA, and an ARM. I will tell you that ARMs have not been advantageous, so you'll probably not be looking at the ARMs.
Probably not for a while. And if you can read that, your eyes are a lot better than I am. But when we go onto List and Lock site, that's what you're going to see. So you're going to see all the different options available to you, as opposed to other List and Lock companies that just do conventional only. So.
And you'll notice that it's a grid, right, based on their credit score.
Mhm.
So if you don't know, obviously you're not going to know what the buyer's credit score is, but it's just showing you what it could be if they had a great credit score or mid credit, and at the different rates.
So the common practice in lending when they advertise rates, I don't personally advertise rates, but when they advertise interest rates is to advertise the top tier, lowest interest rate possible, which you can absolutely do that with this because if, you know, there's going to be disclaimers in all the advertisements that they put out. So it's not misleading at all.
So this is if you wanted to purchase the lock, which we're not suggesting right now.
Yeah. But keep it in mind
But-
for later. And the reason being is because, you know, back when rates were on the upswing, a perfect example of when we had, this was with my old company, the guy paid $1,500 to lock it, but he had been on the market for 45 days, started at 349, price dropped it down to 329, took it off the market for a while, put it back on at 349 with an advertised 4.99 interest rate, and it sold in 16 days. So it, you know, it does work. I mean, there are examples where this does work. This isn't just a gimmick. The idea, obviously, we're doing this because we want to get the buyer on your listing, but it's not always going to happen. But the idea for you guys and the benefit, whether or not we get the buyer, and we want them, but whether or not we get the buyer on your listing, you're going to actually have more eyes on your listing. We're going to put all that content out for you on social media. We're going to give you all the marketing material for your open houses, and people are going to see, wait, on this house, I can get a rate of 1 to 1.5% below what I'm being told by my lender. let me look at that and let me see what my lender can do. And then if not, I'm gonna talk to these guys. That's our motivation. So for you guys, it's just getting more interest in the home.
Are there any disclaimers on the flyers that the seller's concession is only if they use Epic?
I'm
And
not
is
sure.
that legal?
Well, if you're offering the concession, you're offering this rate, it'll say something along the lines of this rate is available with Epic Lending.
Okay,
Okay, but you can't, I don't think you can legally say I'm only offering this concession with Epic because you don't. own
No,
it.
yeah, you can't.
You can't.
because if we're doing, we can talk our seller into like a 1% seller concession and you're offering an additional one.
Mhm.
That's the
We're
advantage,
advertising,
right?
we're advertising it as a 2% seller concession.
Well, you're not really even advertising the amount of the concession you're giving, you're just advertising the
Advertising a
rate.
rate.
And
Okay.
so
And
they,
it's
the
based on
buyer
the
doesn't
buyer
know what it's gonna
criteria.
cost you guys.
Okay,
So for those of you online, if you couldn't hear, what was your name? I'm sorry.
Stacy.
Stacy was asking if there's any kind of disclaimer that, you know, the seller concession is only offered if you use Epic Lending. And we're not advertising the amount of the concession. We're just advertising a rate based on what we know they're willing to offer. This concession is still negotiable between you and the buyer. So.
Absolutely. This is just helping you get eyes on your listing, and if they want to use us, they're gonna get the extra 1%. You know, but it's getting more eyes on it and showing people what they can really do with that concession. So this is if you wanted to lock it. You know, we can walk you through that if we get into a market where it makes more sense to lock it. But as of right now, we're not gonna dive deep into
We don't need to
that.
spend a lot of time on
Right.
that. So,
So this is showing you if you locked in at the rate and how that looks. Downloading the certificate and all the different things that you can share for the open house, the QR code. But skipping to the next one here, it's gonna be similar collateral that you're gonna be able to use. It's just not gonna say that it's locked.
right, and the QR code there, so that rate will stay there, but the QR code will allow the buyer to go in and see today's rate. So if we did a list and lock and we did that today, that's what your marketing material will say. But let's say the jobs reports suck and we get better rates tomorrow, they're gonna go in and see an even better rate than that. So,
And it'll include a sign writer for your listing.
and you'll have a sign writer as well. And all the flyers you need for the open house. So all that info is, and then we're gonna run ads on it on social media as well. So.
So here's some of the preview of the materials that'll be available. So there's the sign writer. And then also the link to apply now once they go to the QR code. Or you can text that to buyer agents. And then also the flyer promoting the social, for the social media and the agents that are looking at that property. Kind of like what the builders are doing, right? I mean, the builders are offering lower rates.
Right, and that's how they're getting so many, that's why I've lost like 35 clients to new builds in the last year and a half,
Yes.
because it's, I work with a lot of people out in Surprise, and it's like, oh, you can have a 20-year-old house for a $2,800 payment, or you can get a brand new house for a $2,500 payment.
Right,
Right?
exactly.
That's $60,000 more, but the rate's lower because they're offering those rate buy downs. So again, like I said earlier, if you have a listing in an area where there are those new build communities offering that incentives, this gives you an opportunity to not necessarily compete fully with them, but at least be more competitive with them.
So the advantages of using list and lock are the fact that you're able to advertise that lower rate, right? No one else is doing that right now. It's extremely user-friendly to use this program. And instead of just saying, hey, we're gonna offer 3% to people that are looking at the MLS, you're able to advertise that lower rate on all kinds of platforms. Regular concessions might be able to entice individual buyers, but list and lock can attract more interest right off the bat. So this goes to that $49 fee. Can a realtor pay the upfront fee? Can the agent and seller split the fee? Yes. It's only $49, but if you were doing the $9.99, it also can be split. It can be paid by one or the other. It doesn't have to be just the seller paying for that. But only one credit card.
None of you are builders, so we're not going to talk about that. So list and lock, again, if we talked about this earlier, it does follow. This is for the locked one. We do have a float down option, so it does follow our float down policies, which that's for anybody. So if, if we lock in a buyer at 30 days and a week before closing, all of a sudden rates drop a lot, we can renegotiate their rate. Same thing with the list and lock.
We have, we have a one-time float down option. So here's the disclaimer. I'll let Mike read it.
Okay, it's actually see it better over there. This lot cannot be transferred to another property address. While list and lock can help buyers significantly, it is not a guarantee to lend. If a buyer is interested in purchasing the listed home at the advertised rate, they must still qualify for the loan. The benefit is that they won't have to qualify for a loan based on higher market rates. Instead, they will be qualifying on the list and lock rate. This is what I talked about earlier. It's going to open more buyers, especially if you're in that $300,000 to $500,000 price range. Then affordability is an issue for a lot of people. This can make it more affordable. We didn't finish the disclaimer, but that's okay. We'll send it out to you so you guys can read it on your own. We know you will. We know you're going to go through and read it all.
There it
No.
is.
But adjustments can occur, so we can lock FHA, VA. It is not and select adjustable rates. The same type of credit and discount can be applied to other loan programs, but rate adjustments could occur. So if we advertise an FHA and somebody comes in with a great conventional offer, we can still utilize that. Same thing, or VA, if you're advertising conventional and a VA buyer comes in, we can use the listed lock still. It's just going to change what that rate is.
And-
Honestly, if you go from conventional VA, it's going to be better.
Yes, yeah, VA rates are always better. But the last sentence in here is mostly talking about if you already locked it. So that wouldn't pertain, the 60-day lock period. So if we're just doing the $49 one, it's just a matter of getting that rate out there for people to see.
Yeah.
So we can open it up to questions and go from there. But I'd rather also open up just the internet to show you what this looks like, and we can use Stacy's listing as an example. So let me see if I close out. I think I close out of this here. And I'll minimize this.
So does anybody have any questions we can throw in the chat at all? At this moment, I see something here. Let's see. Can you explain how the seller saves money? Thank you, Jody. So the seller saves money in a couple different ways. So versus a price drop. So if you have a house, let's say that's at $400,000 and you're thinking about doing a $15,000 price drop. If you do a 3% concession, that's $12,000. So if you keep the price at $400,000 and do a 3% concession for $12,000, that's $3,000 more dollars for your seller. That would be one way the seller saves money. You can do a combination of a price drop and the list and lock if you want. There's nothing saying that you can't. I know when you do a price drop, it resets on the MLS. So
So you can just do minimal price drops versus big ones.
yeah, exactly. So a $12,000 concession will go farther for a buyer than a $15,000 price drop.
So can everybody see the screen? I'm pretty sure you can. So Mike and I both have one of these sites, and we can send that to you. If you go to sell, you can also just Google our name, my site, and it'll come up. But if you go to list and lock, and I'm going to put in the address that Stacy has listed right now. It's 2931 East Fairmount.
There it is.
We're going to click that. Get started. And you're going to scroll right here. So we're going to say maybe maybe her sellers are willing to part with 1.5%, just to see what that looks like. What's the listing price on it?
421.9.
It's not a multi-unit property. It's not a condo. It's not a manufactured home. So we're going to see our rate options based on the 1.5% concessions, which will also incorporate the extra 1% that Epic is providing.
And one thing to note about interest rates is first number psychology. So people don't really notice the difference between 6 and 6.25 and 6.375 as much as they would notice 5.75 versus 6%. That first number matters a lot. So if, you know, everybody kind of knows rates are in the sixes, some sevens in some programs. But if you can show 5 at any point, you're doing pretty good.
So 5.625 is a phenomenal rate right now.
Mhm.
Compared to what we're seeing. And if you choose, this is where you would choose the $49 refundable, you can hit purchase. If you keep scrolling, you go down, you can see the advertised rates. So I'm trying to minimize this little thing.
It's just to the left there.
Can you guys hear
So
me?
if you look at the,
Hello?
the price of that property, I'd be looking at FHA or VA. Because in the 420s, your most likely buyer is probably going to be an FHA or VA buyer.
So if you go to FHA right here, say they're gonna put the 3.5% down, you got the 5.625 that you can advertise if they have a 740 credit score, and it's not even that much higher for 720 or 700. So here you can advertise the 5.625% interest rate. And, you know, without that, it's gonna be a much higher rate.
And in all of our disclaimers, it will say what the required credit score is and stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about not being compliant there. We're the ones who get in trouble if we're not compliant on rate advertising. So we're gonna make sure that we're really good with that. So,
So it also goes in the VA here and the ARM. And if we go back up here, we can click on some of these examples of advertisements. So I'll click on the sign writer.
Barbara?
Oh,
Barb?
it's not?
Hello, can you hear me?
it's still sharing the, you gotta change the screen that you're sharing. So go to share. And
Oh,
then, yeah, and then change, no, just hit the green arrow on the share. And then, yeah, hit that and then hit share and that should go.
thank you.
I didn't even notice that because I was looking at that screen the whole time.
I thought that was what we were seeing.
So for those of you online that didn't see any of that.
I'll go back.
We'll do it again, but yeah, so that's what your sign writer is gonna look like as an example. You know, there's the flyers that you can leave in your open houses. Is there a sample of the social media posts that we're
Yeah.
gonna, the social media video?
So
um,
listing image,
And then a
here,
custom property video.
the video.
And that's shareable. So it'll have the address, it'll have the locked in interest rate. Obviously that's lower than what we just came up with, but you know, again, this is, you know, what are people concerned about? Interest rates. So this
Monthly payment.
monthly payment and interest rates, right? Now, a lot of people don't maybe a lot of people don't understand interest rates, but they do understand monthly payment. So if you can advertise a lower interest rate and a lower monthly payment, that's going to go a lot farther than a price drop.
And so this is a little video that you could share on social media or send it directly to people that you've been working with.
Yeah, if you, you know, if you have a listing and you have your group of buyers that maybe they were not satisfied with what they were qualified for, now they can qualify for your 420 listing because we're getting them the payment where they would be, have them take a look at it.
So I don't know if this just ends or, so by the way, CMG Home Loan, that's what it says at the end. CMG is our parent company, just so you know. How do I get out of this thing? There we go.
And then, yep,
Escape always works.
it always. So, do you want to go back through and just kind of redo
Yeah,
the entering it? So,
so I'm gonna go back to what my site looks like. And Mike and I both have a my site. So Mike obviously would have his picture, his name. You would go to the top here at sell. And you can do this at any time, any time of the day, whenever you want. If you want to do scenarios on different concessions, this is where you put the address in.
just,
2931.
Does anyone else have any other listing?
anybody have a listing they want?
2931.
East Fairmont Avenue.
And if anybody online has a listing you want to check on, give us, just put it in the chat and we'll throw it in there.
So here's where you would advertise a discounted rate. So the example we put in was 1.5%. Let's do 2% this time. So if the seller was willing to part with 2%, or 21,900. on this particular property. So we're not gonna click multi-unit or condo or manufacturer because that's not what we're dealing with. It's just a detached home. And as you can see, once this pulls up, you're gonna have all this collateral you can use. The sign writer is really cool. So the sign writer is included in that $49. And these are all the collateral pieces you can use up here. There's videos you can share on social media, flyers, open house flyers, the sign writer. You come down here to the $49, you can purchase that. And then here are the rates. So say a person was gonna go FHA, the advertised rate can be 5.625.
And that's what I would use on this particular property. What's the VA? It's probably the same.
VA is all the
About
same,
the same.
5.625.
Now, another way that you could do this is if your seller decided that they wanted to give 3%, you could either put the 3% in there, or you can keep it at 2, advertise 5.65, plus we're giving $4,000 towards closing costs.
Yeah, it's definitely another way. So this didn't change when you did the 2 versus the 1.5, so I would just keep it at the 1.5. And then you could offer, you know, 0.5% or 1.5% or whatever to the buyer for closing costs. So for those of you online that missed this the first time, this is what you would do. You would scroll past where it says purchase so that you can see what those rates look like. There's conventional at the top. These are credit scores at the top. So if you're, you know, if somebody's speaking to you that's a buyer, you know, they could tell you what they think their credit score is. Just, you know, what they think the credit score is usually different than what it is when it's pulled for a mortgage. There's a different,
100% of the time.
Usually higher or lower?
Depends.
it's usually lower than what they think.
Yeah, especially Credit Karma. You know, we usually come in about 20 points lower. Every once in a while I get one that comes in higher, but very rarely.
Rarely.
Very rare.
So FHA, you know, you can see here that you can advertise the 5.625 rate. Once the buyer starts talking to us, we can see what it actually is. But still much lower than what's out there for that same criteria. And there's the VA. The arms are not advantageous, as you can see.
Yeah.
And, you know, if anyone's online, does anyone have any chat out there?
There's the one chat we answered the question.
You could put an address in the chat and we can plug an address in if you'd like.
Yeah. So, and again, if you don't have one, we can, you know, look at it. And I would recommend as you're getting ready to list, you know, as you go on a listing appointment, have this in your back pocket and just say, hey, you know, maybe go as your listing appointment as a way to set yourself apart. Say, I have a lender I work with that can do this program. So, you know, your price range is 500 to 510. Let's price it at the higher end and give a $10,000 concession off the bat and advertise a lower interest rate. You know, that's a strategy that not other if they're talking to multiple realtors, that's a strategy that none of the other realtors are going to be telling them.
So what's nice about this flyer is it's showing without the discounted rate what that payment would be. Like in this particular instance, it's a $468 savings per month for someone's mortgage payment. And then here's all the disclaimers here, so you don't have to worry about, you know, having to explain that.
And
Yeah.
showing the payment is huge because that's what most people are concerned with.
Are the templates fixed, or can we plug in that image of that property?
Oh, it'll be the image.
It'll be the image of the property.
Okay.
Yeah. These are just examples, but once we have the address and everything is locked, they'll put the property images.
So here's all of those disclaimers you were wondering about. Pages and pages.
All about the legal.
Right?
Yep.
But the key part here is this first page, showing them the difference in monthly payments for sure. So we can go back here. Here's another one. So here's a flyer you could share that has the QR code and has the rate, showing the price of the house.
And that would go well in your social media stories, like your Facebook and Instagram stories.
It sparks attention, right? A lot of realtors right now are struggling to get attention on their listing because we have more inventory than we're used to. You know, we're still a healthy market though. What are we, 3.5 months of inventory? Something like that.
But compared to, you know, selling in 7 minutes 2 years ago, people are getting
Yes.
confused.
Right?
So 3 years ago.
So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself or go into the chat here. Let's see. Okay, Jody. Thank you for letting us know that you couldn't see the screen. And I'm also going to let Roberta and Art say a few words about what you can also put in your listing in regards to saving the sellers and the buyers money, in addition to our list and lock program.
Yes,
I'm using that in mine.
all right.
I'm gonna let Roberta take over here. Let me close this down and stop sharing. Let me figure out how to do that. Is it still sharing the screen?
Well, yeah, your screen, your main screen.
Okay, so if I put Roberta on here.
You can hit stop share there on the right if you want.
There we go. There we go.
Hi,
All
Barb.
right, here's Roberta.
All right. So, as many of you are aware, and as Stacy is using and several others have used, we offer 50% off. I'm covering Art's face. We offer 50% off of the escrow fee if you put the specific wording in your listing asking to please use Rock Title, and that 50% is extended to buyer and seller. So it's, you know, few to several $100s worth of savings. And just to have it in your listing, what we need when escrow is opened is the MLS private remarks to show that you requested it, and then we can extend that discount.
That's awesome. So now you have two ways to get more eyes on your listings.
That's right.
I do have a question on that.
Yes,
So the private only goes to agents.
yes.
How do we advertise that to the public? And are we allowed to?
I don't think you're allowed to. I think
Okay.
it's just to agents.
Okay,
If you didn't hear, Stacy's asking how to advertise to the public, but I believe that's reserved just for agents.
okay. So what if we have we have a buyer that doesn't have an agent? If they're not
You
represented?
can tell them,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So as long as it's verbal.
Right.
Okay.
And unless they work for title, they're probably gonna want to go with whoever you have for title
Exactly,
anyway. so.
exactly, unless they've worked with someone specifically
Right.
over the years.
Mhm. So,
Okay.
All right,
awesome.
any other questions?
Do you have any other stories you want to share that kids have been working for sellers, buyers?
Art, do you have any stories, things that have
Oh, I
worked?
have lots of stories.
He's a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, he's got some
This is
bad
PG.
stories.
Yeah, but nothing
Yeah.
currently, no.
The majority of the listings that we're seeing coming from Realty One, they're taking advantage of the 50% off. Yeah, I can't think of anything specific.
Hmm.
Market's definitely getting better.
Yeah, and just be prepared for a really good 2025. It's going to be a lot better than this
Yes.
last year. What I would say is now is a very good time if you had buyers, the buyers that you had that were pre-approved earlier in the year probably can qualify for more now. So you want to reach back out to them. And if they're not satisfied with their qualification, especially if they're FHA buyers, and I'm going to say because we're really strong on FHA. So if you have an FHA buyer who's not satisfied with their qualification amount, send them our way for a second look. We will 100%, we will do our best to bump that up as much as we can. So talk to Barbara and I about that. Our goal is to try to get your buyers into houses as quickly as possible. Obviously get you guys paid, but more importantly, get them into a home. And so, you know, you'll be surprised how many times I've talked to people who have been told I talked to a lady not that long ago who was told she was only qualified for 190 and I got her qualified for 370. So it's just looking a little deeper into the file and seeing how you can make things happen for them. So just if you have any buyer that you have that's not happy with their qualification amount, especially on the FHA side, have them talk to Barbara.
And I just had one yesterday that I pre-qualified. The other lender only qualified them for 375,000 for FHA, and I was able to qualify them at 420,000 with some creative lending strategies. So
Yeah.
it's definitely worth a second look. We don't have to do an invasive second look, but if someone wants to know whether or not they're getting the right deal, it's definitely worth the conversation.
And if they're concerned about credit pulls, we pull a soft credit pull first, so it doesn't even impact their credit score. Just for fun, go on like MLS and look at how many houses are available between 370 and 420, and look at how many more homes are open up to that buyer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for being on today. I know we're a little bit early. So if anyone has any more questions, we're happy to go through that. Otherwise, we hope you have a wonderful week and happy holidays.
Fortunately, this is not a CE class, so we can let you go early. Take care.
Thanks for being on today, Jen, Jody, Parvi. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great one. If you're not at the party tomorrow, if you're at the party tomorrow, look for the dude in the Santa suit. That's me. So don't tell your kids though. So
I will not be in the Mrs.
Okay.
Santa suit.
all right. All right, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.